Hi, we're Stephanie and Dan Holmes, and you may remember hearing us introduce ourselves on our podcast, NeuroDiverse Christian Couples. But today we want to tell you about our family's new book, Embracing the Autism Spectrum, Finding Hope and Joy, Navigating the Neurodiverse Family Journey. Back in 2015, I wrote my personal story of the family's journey in a previous book called Confessions of a Christian Counselor, How Infertility and Autism Grew My Faith. But it left off with our transition to Georgia from North Carolina. The girls were still in middle school and high school, and there was still a lot more story to tell.
So this new book tells of our marriage and family story from each person's perspective. It's been updated to go all the way through high school and college. Sydney, our eldest daughter, was diagnosed with what was then called Asperger's in 2005 and 2006, and much of Stephanie's first book focused solely on that diagnostic journey and the learning curve of parenting a child with neurodiversity. But along the way, we discovered that we are a neurodiverse couple. I was identified on the spectrum in 2019, and when Stephanie wrote the book, the first one, we'd begun thinking about the possibility of me being on the spectrum, but were at the time focused solely on our parenting journey.
So earlier this year, our daughter Sydney came to me and said, "Hey Mom, I'm almost 25 and just feels like you're telling my story or our story from your lens. But I have a lived experience and feelings and thoughts about how all of this impacted me. So can we write a mother-daughter version of the book where I can tell my own lived experience?" So as we began planning this, Dan said, "Well, I would like to write. I have my own identification and I'd like to give some father and husband hindsight learning." And then Erica, our youngest, said, "Well, I want to contribute as well. I'm also neurodivergent and have ADHD, and I want to write some of the honest things of what it's like being the sibling to someone on the spectrum." So with some coaching and creative assistance, we began writing this book from this four-person perspective.
It was also important for us to not simply just share the narrative, but since we've been on this journey for almost 20 years, we wanted to share practical tips, some of the things that worked, some of the things that didn't, so that you could benefit from our experience and employ those in your own lives.
Dan also crafted a devotional and spiritual reflection. It's meant for you not just to read from chapter to chapter, narrative to narrative, but also pause and reflect on your spiritual journey as you're navigating this maybe unforeseen marriage and family journey. We write from our lived experience and our professional and ministerial perspectives. I also have created a workbook so that this book could be used for small groups, for parents with kids, or marriages with additional challenges and complexities that come with being part of a neurodiverse family.
So you can find the print book and the audio book, the eBook, on Amazon. We had a request for an audio version, which can be found on BookBaby. There's also a workbook. All of the resources, the links to each of those versions, can be found in the notes below.
Our work was written with many audiences in mind. So, who is this book for? Our book is for anyone who wants to better understand autism or neurodiversity from a family that has lived it and living it, and for anyone who wants to improve their ability to serve, support, advocate, or include those on the autism spectrum.
Our book intends to create hope, understanding, and the promotion of healthy neurodiverse marriages and families through education, equipping, and providing effective strategies for those who desire support, including ministers and advocates for families that are also neurodiverse.
Our book provides personal and professional experience moving from surviving to thriving.
Our book will educate the educators and Christian leaders and gives the reader who may be on this marriage and family journey our hindsight learning with spiritual devotions as you continue on your own.
And we want to speak to many different types of families, so our lived experience is not one of blending with the autism spectrum or a single parent perspective. So in the appendices, we have additional information for those who may be blending families with autism or from a single dad's perspective raising a son on the autism spectrum. But at the forefront of who we are and why we wrote the book, why we do our weekly podcast, and we've created courses for marriage and families, is we want you to know that there is hope for your future. Find joy on that journey, and you're not alone on this journey.